Take it away, Haley. Thanks.
First off, I want to start with a little bit about me. So my name's Haley. I've been in tech for almost a decade, and you're probably like, what does that have to do with Avalanches? Well, I went to Mount Shasta a couple years ago, as in like almost 10 years ago, and I got introduced to Avalanches there from Mount Shasta Avalanche Center, so big shout out to them. And Nick Myers, he's a really good dude. But they were the one that made me get a hobby that went a little bit rogue. And so I went back to school and I got another degree in atmospheric science. I got a certificate in hydrology and water resource management. And now I'm here. And so a couple months ago, I did a research project on wet avalanches and climate change in the Wasatch. And I started correlating some really interesting data. And I thought that maybe you would all be interested in hearing about it. So a little context, I went over 40 years of avalanche observations, individually going through each one and comparing it to its prospective SNOTEL weather station. So I looked at type, I looked at air temperature, soil temperature, snowpack data, and then SWE, and then I compared it to climate change, which is pretty interesting. There is a primary focus on wet slabs, glides, and loose avalanches in this project. So no persistent weak layers today. Sorry, guys. I know that's, we all love those, but that's not what you get today. So just to start off, I'm going to talk a little bit as like a fundamental level about these, because I know that we're not really super familiar here with them. They're not super common. And when you go through several studies, it typically says that we're getting wet avalanches like 3% of the time in this snowpack, which is starting to go up as the weather is shifting. So just to start off, we have wet loose avalanches. That's the one that you saw today, which is pretty interesting. So these typically start at a singular point, and then they fan out and they entrap more terrain as they move. This is typically like the top layer of the snowpack, and it will just like go take out things. So I'm going to show you some videos as well, just because I'm personally a visual learner and I could hear people talk all day and it would mean nothing to me. But is that going to work?
Oh, I don't know.
I was like, there should be a video. I guess we don't get video, which was like the fun part. This is a bummer. Okay, so I'm going to show you. You're going to go. Okay, so I guess we don't get those. Bummer. Okay.
Exit.
Exit.
And then try that. No? Bummer.
No. Okay, that's fine. We don't want to listen to him anyways. So the next one that we're going to talk about is a wet slab. So this is the one that I primarily want to talk about because these are really destructive. You see these a lot in Little Cottonwood taking up the road in the March-April season. This is where water will percolate down and it will gather on like a crust. So like this year, how we have a rain crust, we're going to have water that's percolating down, and water doesn't travel evenly. And so it'll pull on the crust and then it'll cause a collapse because it'll disrupt the bonding in the snow. And so I had a really sweet video for this one too, but here, let me try. Dang it, I'm sorry guys. Okay, well, we'll just get past it. My favorite one personally is a glide. Do any of y'all know about glides? They're crazy, right? They're super cool in a terrible kind of way. So, so the thing with glides is they have water running underneath them. So you find these typically on like rock slabs or grassy areas. And so you have water running underneath the snowpack and it'll basically cause the entire pack to go at like one time. So you can see it, you will see like cracks forming and they kind of look like fish mouths. That's how I was always taught about it. And then the interesting thing about these is when those cracks form, sometimes it could take anywhere from weeks to like minutes for it to collapse. So if you see those could collapse in a matter of minutes. And sorry. All right, so the other interesting thing about glides is they're recurring. So we often will see recurring glides on the diving board because it's a slab. And so with the history of them, you can go back into areas and see that they're going to happen over and over again. So so diving board, Broads Fork, Bonkers, Stairs Gulch, and Blue Ice were all areas where we often saw glides happening over and over again. Okay, now the fun part, climate change. All right, so March and April is when we would typically see wet avalanches starting to occur. As time is progressing, there has been a period of time. So from the 80s until now, we've seen a 3-degree increase over time. And that's about 0.075 per year that we're seeing the temperature increase. So that's going to be pushing the snowpack closer to the melting point. Another important note about wet avalanches is it's not necessarily about temperature because it's a thermodynamics thing. So we'll get more into that a little bit later. But the seasonal norms is we would see wet avalanches occurring in March and April, but they're being pushed up sooner and sooner. So anytime there's a warm storm, any rain on snow events, you're going to start seeing wet avalanches occur more frequently. So with that climate shift, we are seeing it happen a lot faster. So in February and also in December, there's been reports of wet avalanches happening, especially when there's a shallow snowpack. The fun part, thermodynamics. So these are all components of things that would cause a wet avalanche to happen. So like I said, it's not about temperature. So even if you look at the temperature, it's not necessarily representative of what's happening in the snowpack. So you have energy happening, and I made you this really good diagram of this happy guy who shouldn't be here right now. He's psyched. But you have energy coming from the sun, reflection or albedo. And the albedo, so snow is one of the most reflective materials on the planet. And then, so that is going to cause energy. Additionally, you have in-depth absorption, re-radiation. So if you have a night that is cloudy, it's going to trap heat and it's going to cause more energy in the snowpack. So that's not necessarily representative. That's actually a red flag if it's a cloudy night. And then you have vapor diffusion. All of this is going to be causing the snowpack to be shifting and going closer into that thermodynamic area. So 32 degrees is going to be the shift between ice and between the liquid. And so that's where it gets kind of concerning, is where you have energy that's forming in the snowpack, and it's going to start causing melting and then melt flow, which will cause pooling in the snowpack on those crusts. So that's why when you're going out on these sunny days and you're like, oh, there's no red flags, there's no lumping or cracking or anything like that, it's because it's happening on that lower layer in the crust where pooling or water is pooling, and then it will cause it to collapse at one time. That's the really hard part, and that's why we recommend that you get out earlier and you leave earlier when you start seeing red flags. So what I was referring to with the 32 degrees is the latent heat of fusion. So this is where it's shifting from a solid, snow is really cool because it is everything all at the same time. It's ice, it's liquid, it's vapor. And so it's all these things at the same time, and we're trying to balance putting pressure on it and also additionally managing all the energy components that it's trying to deal with. Wet snow avalanches by month. So over the 7,000 avalanches, I found that there's 148 avalanches that happened in March. So what the point of this is this is an issue that you should be looking for. It's not just necessarily isolated to the intercontinental snowpack. This is going to be happening in March, April, May. It could be happening in December. These are all things that you should just plan for. And when you're going out in the backcountry with your friends, it's always good to be safe and mindful of the types of issues that you could be running into, especially with the weather warming. And as you all know, the weather was extremely warm this year. It's not necessarily representative of climate change and everything that's happening, there's a high pressure ridge above the western United States. We're seeing that all across the states. So I contacted one of my friends from Mount Shasta Avalanche Center, and their snowpack is actually at like 60 inches, and ours is like sitting around 130. So going from 900 to like 130 is kind of sad. At least the pits that I've dug in the Wasatch, it's a little bleak. So this is a very interesting correlation as well. So with the observations that were reported from 2000 to 2010, there was roughly 10 or less reports of wet avalanches happening in the central Wasatch. Over the last decades, it's increased substantially. So last year we got a report of 94 wet avalanches, and the year before that we had 86. So it's definitely an issue that is occurring. It's not something to like ignore, especially when you're going in the backcountry during warming periods. And then additionally, you can see here from 2006 to 2005, there's been a direct correlation of warming. So there's been a 1.6 temperature gradient since 2006, which also relates to the snow water equivalent. The snow is getting heavier and there's more water content in it now. So in 1996, there was about 10 inches average of sleet, and now we're sitting around 17 inches.
Yeah, this year's sleet numbers.
I don't have this year. It's probably sad. we don't have anything. So I have a demo, but I can show you all after this. So I kind of want to show you what it looks like with the pooling. So I made this beautiful cake. I know y'all want to be, isn't it good? Thank you. So basically what happens when water, so this is representative of not rain or snow, it is merely meltwater. And so this plastic wrap right here would be like a rain crust, and then you have your snowpack here. So when you go and you add water, you can see here, oh man, if I can get it. It's not going to flow and like, it's not going to cover the whole thing. It's going to melt and then pool on that layer. So you can't see it obviously because you guys are back there, but if you could, yeah. And then when you add pressure to it, it's going to cause those areas to collapse, and you're going to see like through here that snowpack is going to collapse where it pooled. It's really similar to snow, where it's going to cause the bonds to break in the areas where more water has been. Water is really destructive for the snowpack because it's, you know, water. So, things that you can look for when you are in the backcountry or with your friends or whatever. You don't want to be there when there's rapid warming, solar aspects, skiing on steep terrain that's been touched by the snow. If you see roller balls or pinwheels, this is a really good indicator that your margin is shrinking for there being a wet avalanche. And as you guys saw today, like they can happen pretty quick and like not have big signals that they're going to collapse. Sometimes they just happen because of the sun and water running underneath. So good rule of thumb is start and finish early, avoid steep sun exposed slopes. Shade is good when you are in like warming periods. And then reduce your time in run out zones just like you would have in a persistent weak layer problem. So just in general, your 5 rules of thumb when you are traveling in avalanche terrain, just make sure that you recognize the issues around you and you actually listen to them. I think oftentimes we go in the backcountry and we get hyper fixated on things and we want to go have fun and ski whatever it is, whether it be corn, which is like my personal favorite, or you want to ski powder. So you end up in situations where you're in dangerous positions when you don't necessarily have to be there. Like we have endless time to be in the backcountry. There's no reason for you to like push the limit when there's always going to be time. And there's always another area as well. Like this year, like we had terrible snow here. So you go to Japan and it's sick, right? So there's always going to be another time in another area. So sorry to make that personal. I know that probably hurt, but whatever. Always bring your rescue gear and make sure you can manage injuries. I think that's really important. Like if you're going into the backcountry, it doesn't hurt to take like an EMT class or a woofer or anything. Knowing how to like treat injuries is really important. Like I've been climbing and skiing for 10 years and I've seen so many injuries and so many accidents, and I think it's like your responsibility as a partner to also be a good partner. Just so like, you know, learning how to do that and holding on to things that are like quick clot and a tourniquet. Those are pretty sweet to have. Understand danger ratings, current problems, and weather. Even if you look into weather and you start learning about it, it's really important, and there's really cool insights you can gather from it. You can start predicting when there's going to be good snow. So like if you look at Mount Shasta and there's an atmospheric river running over Mount Shasta, sometimes we get those storms. So you can start planning on like weather as well when you're when you look into weather and start learning about it on like a macro level. Know how to find route, and I think the most important one is have good partners. You can always back off, and I think when someone in your group does want to back off, it's okay to back off. That's the important thing, especially when we're skiing in terrain that's unpredictable with like wet avalanches. You don't know when they're going to happen, so having someone be like, hey, these pinwheels are kind of spooky and my skis are like, the snow's glopping to my skis really bad, it's probably a good time to turn around and listen to your partners. So this is a really important project, and it brings to light the important things with climate change. I think that all of us have that experience of feeling fatigue when it comes to like bigger issues. But in my opinion, like you can make a difference just by doing little things, as well as like, especially like in the Wasatch, you should actively plan on someone trying to trigger an avalanche on top of you, because there's so many people here and there's so many different dynamics. And so there's going to be people coming in and looking at you being experienced people, and they'll see something that you do and take that as an example. And so being a good steward of the Wasatch is also being mindful of how people are watching you and things that you do. Like maybe don't shoot the gut of Superior during like a really sunny day, or like after a really big storm issue, you know, like those are good things not to do, and like not triggering a avalanche on the freeway is pretty sweet. So, so I don't know, like being a good steward is really important to being a backcountry skier just in general. But this kind of goes into how you can help with climate change and how you can help be supportive of the Wasatch. But this is also coming from a place that I'm on the board of a nonprofit for like backcountry skiing. People are always watching backcountry skiers. And so this helps, like being a good steward and being someone that's representing the Wasatch and listening to issues. Like if you trigger an avalanche, that's going to show, that's showing the entire community other issues, right? So this impacts like how the Forest Service does things, this impacts private landowners. Everything you do is impactful to your community. And so it's important to be a model for who you want to be in the Wasatch, and making good decisions and being mindful and treating everybody like, sorry, I don't want to make this a friends, backcountry ski friends group, but that's ultimately being a good person in the backcountry is also taking care of the community and the environment around you. As we all know, it can be a little clapped here. And so we just have to be mindful of each other and respectful of that, especially where our decisions can impact others in a way where you could trigger avalanches on top of other people. And I think that's really important to remember here. And we've seen it historically with other avalanches that have happened here. All that to be said, I want to say a big thank you to Ogden Avalanche and the many other avalanche centers that have supported me, and the U of U and several other people that have been mentioned here, Libby, Corey, Jake. You have all impacted my life in really big ways. So thank you for supporting my ski life and my craziness with all this. So You're awesome. Thank you. I hope you learned something.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions for Haley, more specific stuff about wet slides or just skiing in the Salt Lake region in general, I'm sure she's happy to chat with you guys. We also have some merch for sale, some free stickers. Come chat with us up at the table, grab another beer. Big round of applause. Thanks again, Haley. Appreciate you.